So now we're going to do another Latvian Gambit, and the Latvian Gambit is something that we've done a lot of, and I play as black frequently, if not exclusively, against e5 as a response to e4. So in this particular case, we're going to develop quickly and open the f file, and eventually we get a pawn in f2 and then f1. So this is an interesting game from a number of standpoints. In terms of occupying the center as a nuisance and pressuring d4, we completely failed. And as far as castling, on either side, we failed there too. This is a game where black doesn't castle at all. So this is going to be something interesting, and you're going to see how I misplayed this and how I was completely lost out of the opening. And this is a good example of how not to play the Latvian Gambit, and yet it shows something about positions, and in particular the kind of positions that the Latvian Gambit can create. It creates a real issue for white, and in the end we won this game. And as you watch that, keep this in mind, because this game looks like it's hideously lost the whole way. These are standard moves here. And now that retreat threatens to go to d5 and various things, which creates a retreat problem. Notice the computer wants me to play c6, which I do. Now c4 is an unusual move. So that is a sign that this is a positional player. And now it wants me, believe it or not, to fiend kiddo my king bishop. So I retreat my queen, which is a move that's simply designed to take the queen off a square it really doesn't belong and put it on another square. And also to move knight to f6 and bishop to e7 and things like that. The computer doesn't like what I did. Also supports the d5 square. Now, quite correctly, white moves f3. So this is the computer line. And as you'll notice a move ago, it says that I absolutely have to take this and allow him to just develop with his queen and then proceed with bishop to e7 and castle. So we're going to protect it and die quickly, except white doesn't take advantage. So in this particular case, it says white has a huge advantage just by moving bishop to e2, and eventually it also says I took the wrong way here, and now technically this is a lost game. I did see bishop to c4, obviously, and I intended to respond with simply bishop to e6, but I saw the d5, d6 push being just too strong. So I move my queen again, and now I'm practically down 3. And he's got 3 pieces. He's got control of the center. He's about to castle unfettered, and I'm basically lost. He castles, and strangely enough, the computer keeps changing its mind, but I'm trying to desperately get some piece development. I've completely messed up this opening by protecting a pawn instead of capturing. And of course, capturing also leads to a negative, but not as bad a one. So now it says that he can move knight on e to d5, and he moves it to b5 instead, which obviously attacks the c7 square. And in this particular case, there's about one move you can make that is going to save this game. You can move rook to b8 or something like that, but that just sets yourself up for failure. So we gave up on castling and moved king to d8. Now, this is one of the ugliest positions that I've ever had. And it says I'm down 3 if he just moves queen to b3, for instance, which threatens horrible things on the f7. So instead he pushes. It allows me a little bit of breathing space. So now it says all he has to do is move bishop to e2 and not allow me to exchange off that bishop. Instead, he decides to set himself up with kind of an interesting attack scenario. And of course, this allows me to equalize. So it forces him to sack the exchange. Otherwise, he loses his queen. And now I actually have something. But if you look at it, it says it's an even game, but my king's on d8. There are things that have to be dealt with here, such as the shocking position of my king and the open files around it, and yet it seems like my bishops have tremendous scope. My bishops, which have never moved, have more scope than his bishops. So it's a very strange position chess-wise, and I was having a lot of trouble coming to grips with what to do, and obviously this person spent a great deal of time trying to figure out how to exploit this potentially disastrous situation. And one of the things that I'm going to move here soon is knight to e8, which turns out to be about the only saving move defensively. So now I'm going to have all my pieces on the first rank. And this is where I move it. Knight. Oh no, first I checked. The computer didn't like that, just like me to leave the pawn there, which in effect paralyzes his knight. He moves in the corner. I like setting up kind of a mating thread here. Now, it says basically white's got a very small advantage, and it's a very curious position if you look at it. I mean, it looks like he can do whatever he wants. And amazingly, the computer wants him to move knight to d1. The computer says that's the best move. That's not something that I can think of any human being that I've ever known would make a move like that. But it does actually create a bit of a checking issue on g4. So it says it forces h6. So instead, he moves his bishop out. Now, who can blame him? Look, now he's got all of his pieces developed except for his rook, which is now finally protecting the back rank. And it's the wrong move. It's giving me the advantage, me who has a king in the middle and all my pieces in the first rank. So now it says I should move bishop to d7, which I don't do. I just decide finally to try to exchange some material off here. And of course, he doesn't take, which would have resulted in an even game according to the computer. And now it says queen to f6 is a good move, and I got a little bit aggressive here. And the reason why I did is because the person is way behind on time at this point, and I figure if I can create some threats and make him think some more, he's going to get even more critically behind on time. So, well, I'm doing something that is a little bit unsound in terms of chess theory. It says he's supposed to exchange this off. Instead, he starts pushing the a pawn. And now, look, all of a sudden, if I move bishop to c5, it says basically I don't have a winning advantage, but close. I don't move there, I create another threat. Now I'm finally getting some development. I've got one piece off the first rank, and deep into this game. So you're going to see him become utterly, entirely lost here in a second. Bishop to c5, recommended move. Okay. This is where it's impossible for him to continue to function properly. And he has to really be careful of, back rank threats. So he checks, I interpose, and he's forced to exchange basically. It says, well, no, he can move queen to h5, but he exchanges, and the game's over. I win. And this is a one position for black, even though I took with the rook instead of the knight. Now, if he plays pawn takes pawn, which he did, bishop takes b6, and we're finally in a one position for black. And this person lost on time. However, we have what will amount to a winning advantage here in a second. So I thought that I'd show you this game, as ugly and horrible and depressing as it looked and was. Not only was it salvageable, but moving a king to d8, where it looked like it should have been checkmated a dozen different ways, was an extremely good defensive move. And that's the end of this episode.